Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram at TVA and on Twitter X at TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Bob Culkeen. Bob is president and CEO of WTCI Television, the PBS affiliate for Chattanooga. Bob, welcome to My Morning Cup. Before we find out exactly why Oscar the Grouch was so grouchy, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
My morning cup has black English breakfast tea.
English breakfast tea?
Yes, sir.
You always been a breakfast tea guy?
I've always been a tea guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that because you're from Massachusetts and you threw all that tea into the harbor? And
I think it might be. My earliest recollections of having tea is with my mom's mom, and she would have tea, maybe just a little bit of tea, a whole lot of milk, and a whole lot more sugar.
Yeah.
And that was my drink for a while until I said, I don't want any more tea. I don't want any more milk or sugar, and I just have black tea.
You know, it's funny you mention that. As a kid growing up, I remember now, particularly with my grandmother, having hot tea with a lot of milk and a heck of a lot of sugar.
Exactly. That's what it was. I tell you what, when my first cup of tea, I thought I was going to get a cup of tea when I moved to Florida. I went to a breakfast spot, and I said, I had eggs and a bacon and all that kind of stuff. And I said, could I have a cup of tea, please? And all of a sudden, this big glass with ice came. And I'm like, what the heck is that? You know, I'm 22 years old. I've been drinking tea all my life. And I said, what's that? She said, that's tea here in the South. And I said, really? She said, yeah. And I said, okay. And I took a sip out of it. And it was the sweetest thing I ever tasted. And I was like, wow. And she said, what's the matter? And I said, what is it? And she said, it's sweet tea.
Oh, God.
And she said, in the South, if you want hot tea, you have to ask for hot tea.
You got to say hot tea.
You ask for tea, it's going to be sweet.
I grew up on iced tea, and I drink it without any sugar, with just some lemon. And one day I was in Panera, and I'm watching them mix the tea, the sweet tea. I've never seen so much sugar poured into something. I can't do that.
Yeah, I can't either. Unsweet tea all the way.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're here. How long have you been in Chattanooga now?
January 20th, 2020.
2020.
So, yeah, what a magical time to move.
Oh, yeah. You were right when when did the pandemic start? Right
2
in
months
20?
before. Yeah, March 18th is when we changed our work habits and had to redo our whole station to work remotely and continue to operate as a broadcaster. And it was an interesting time.
It's a challenge. Absolutely.
It was, yeah.
Well, the PBS station is very important to the community, and I think you've done a great job of I don't want to say fixing a lot of things, but yes, fixing a lot of things and making it more prominent in the community. But I want to start at the beginning. You grew up in Massachusetts, huh? Bedford?
Medford, Massachusetts. Yep. It's outside of Boston. When I was 10, we moved to Danvers, Mass., which is on the North Shore.
You know, when you talk about Massachusetts, you get a little bit of that accent.
Just get going. Just wait till I start speaking faster.
It's faster. Park your car in the yard and sit on the stoop.
That's right.
So how long were you in Bedford before you moved to Danvers?
I was in Medford.
Medford. I keep saying
Bedford's another city.
Jeez, oh,
Bedford is another city, and if you like bread, it has the best bread in all of New England. But Medford is Paul Revere, all that kind of stuff. But I was in Medford my first 10 years of life.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Danvers, Massachusetts, which is on the North Shore.
And you're the oldest, and 2 brothers and a sister?
Yes, sir. 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the oldest. The better looking, the wiser. That's what they tell me anyways.
Well, you're the oldest, of course. By the time the others come along, all the good genes were wasted on the oldest.
That's what they say.
And you moved to Danvers, and I know in talking to you and getting a little information from you, you guys had a pretty traumatic event when you first moved, didn't you?
Yeah. We lived in an apartment. It was a home, 2-level home in Medford, Massachusetts, and 10 days before Christmas, it burnt down. And we lived next door to a convent, and the nuns took us in that night. So
Really?
I can say I slept in a convent. I don't know how many guys can say that. The nuns were our friends. And then we lived on a third floor family house in an attic for a couple months before my family, my mom and dad, found a house in Danvers, Mass. So that's when we moved to Danvers.
So you're 10 years old and your home burns.
Yes.
I mean, can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, is that a pretty traumatic? I would imagine that's a pretty traumatic event for a kid.
Well, there was my brother and I were in the bathtub when the fire department came to the house and said we all need to get out, and we were in the bathtub.
Wow.
Looked, and on the other side of the street was the Osgood School, and all we could see was the reflection of flames in the windows of the Osgood born school, and that's when we realized that our house was truly on fire.
What caused it?
Artificial tree lights on our landlord upstairs on the second floor.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So how long did you have no place to live or live with the nuns?
We lived with the nuns one night, and then we had family that lived in Medford, and they had a 3-decker. And on the third decker was an uninsulated attic that had electricity and everything. So we moved to that third floor in that winter. It was probably it was the coldest but the warmest winter we ever had together. It was really pretty cool. And have aunts and uncles in the second and first floor. It was a big-time party. We would go downstairs and would eat with them, and then would go upstairs to sleep. And my parents worked hard to get out of Medford to find a home. And they found a home in a suburb called Danvers. It was kind of a farming community at the time, and that city has changed quite a bit.
Isn't it amazing how when you have some big traumatic event like that, what you really reflect back on are the good things about it?
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you were with family and everyone was together. And so they find a home in Danvers and you grow up in Danvers. Talk a little bit about that growing up in the Northeast, because I know you had some interesting jobs growing up too.
I did. Well, I mean, there was a working farm in the neighborhood that we moved in. Belgian horses, goats, all that kind of stuff in the neighborhood. And we were city people. So it was a big change to see a barn in your neighborhood and hear the roosters and all that kind of stuff. But the city changed. The town changed. It's still a town. And I have fond memories of Danvers. I really do think that my broadcast career started in Danvers because my high school, I had an English class writing for scripting for television. We had a class that I used a 8mm and a 16mm camera and shot film. We had a dark room. We had a brand new television studio. So in my junior year, I really was a media nerd right from the start. And I was in the studio, working in the studio, creating news shows for the school. And that's when I really found the love of being in television production.
So was there a teacher that had a big influence on you at that point?
Yeah, Bill Clark. And it's funny, this summer, my wife and I, well, actually this fall, we were up in Danvers, and he runs a farm, Clark Farm. I drove up into his farm, and no cars beyond here because you weren't farm. I still went there, knocked on his door. He opened up the crack, and I said, Bill Clark? He says, yes. And he said, who are you? And I said, Bobby Culkeen. And he said, Bobby! And he came flying through the door. And we sat down on his front porch and we talked about, the early days in television production and how much of an influence he had on me. And I've written to him over the year to thank him and let him know what I'm doing. And the educators that are in your life, you just don't know the impact that they carry through with you.
Had you seen him prior to that over the?
When my mom passed away, the cemetery is right next to the farm. So when my mom passed away, I went and I saw him then too.
Yeah.
So that was about 10 years ago. So.
Oh, that had to be just a great time to sit and reminisce.
Yeah, it was.
And he hadn't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you had to introduce yourself as Bobby.
Well, that's, my early years, my family and friends, if you call me Bobby, it's an earned name.
Yeah. I always knew I was in trouble when my mother would call me Michael, because if it was always my friends calling me Mike, and my family, when they called me Michael, I knew something was up.
Yep, absolutely.
As you were a kid growing up, you're the oldest, so you're now out in a more rural community. Mm-hmm. What kind of jobs did you find to keep yourself busy or to get some spending money for yourself?
I worked at Tom McCann Shoes at the Liberty Tree Mall, and I sold shoes. It's funny, my dad used to be a shoe salesman, so we both started to share shoe jokes. So you talk about bad dad jokes, there's a lot of bad shoe jokes, and so I did sell.
You have an example of one?
I
put you on
Mike,
the spot.
you got a lot of soul. So
that's got to be an interesting job, though.
It was, and I almost got fired there. We had this thing called designated second pairs, and this is where I learned a little bit about business. And they had a button that said, "Ask me about your secondary designated second pair of shoes." And it's a big button.
Yeah.
And I put it on upside down. And my manager was like, this is very disrespectful. And I said, "No, it's not." And he said, "Why is it not disrespectful?" And I said, "When I'm on my knees and I'm putting shoes on a customer, they're looking at me. And if I have a button right side up for you to see it, they can't read it. If I turn it upside down, they're going to read it." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Go look at my commission sheet." So I looked at my commission sheet. He called all the sales reps on the floor and he said, "Everybody, turn your buttons upside down." So,
how long did you sell shoes?
Probably 3 years. And I also worked as an usher at Sac Cinema. Again,
through high school.
Through high school and into college. And then my summer job, which is my favorite job of all time, I worked for the harbor master.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. I saw that, and I can't think of anything more Massachusetts than working for the harbor master.
Working for the harbor master is it's an awesome job. It was an awesome.
What's
job.
that entail?
Well, he was a police officer on the water, so he patrolled the harbor. It was a protected harbor in Danvers. We had moorings and slips, and we had a launching ramp. And we also had to prep all the stuff that's in the water, the channel markers and all that kind of stuff. So my part-time job that was supposed to be a summer job actually went from mid-April to the end of October. And it was during the summer, it was 6 days a week, and then weekends during the rest part of the year. And I basically supervised the launching ramp, and it was my all-time favorite job.
Did that give you a love of water?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you boat?
I have a kayak. I've had small sailboats, but I have not had yes, I love the water, but I don't have a big boat or anything like that.
Not out on the lake or anything?
You invite me out there, I'll go for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I had a boat, I would. I would. So you got bit by the media bug in high school, and a lot of folks who we've talked to on this podcast who are in the media have almost to a person used that to get their summer jobs or rode their bike to the radio station or the television station. Talk a little bit about how you took that bug and took it not necessarily in your high school jobs, but where it led to you in college and things like that.
Well, I went to school in Kenmore Square, Graham Junior College. It was a broadcast center. Graduated there in 2 years and went to Fitchburg State University.
Now, where was Kenmore Square?
Right outside of Fenway Park, buddy. Home of the Sox. So it was right there. So,
and that was a broadcast school? So,
it was a broadcast school.
Okay.
Yep. And that was, and the instructors there were directors and producers in the Boston market. Yeah. So what I did was I just collected all the names. You have a contact list, right? So I had a loose leaf binder, and I would put everybody's name I met and their contacts. So when I graduated from school from Fitchburg University, I reached out to everyone on that list. And one person was the director of engineering at the WUFT in Gainesville, Florida. And he said, "I have a job as a switcher." Now I'm thinking, okay, switcher, news department.
Yeah.
Sitting there, camera 1, camera 2, blah, 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 blah. And you didn't have the internet. You couldn't do the research. So I said, okay, I'll take the job. And I moved first time flying to to Gainesville, Florida in 1979.
You went from Boston to Gainesville, Florida. That had to be a culture shock.
It was a culture shock, and it was really not only a shock to me, but my whole family. It's like the first time I left, and I'm gone, and I walk into this studio, and I'm actually in master control, Mike.
Explain master control.
Master control. If you're a switcher in master control, you're actually taking all the resources, the TV shows, the interstitials, which are like your commercials or your IDs, PSAs, all that kind of stuff. And you're putting that out to the transmitter so people can watch it at home. So master control is basically, you have a listing of what should be aired and what you should record, and you're the guy that makes it all happen.
You're the last gatekeeper to what goes out on the air. You're
the last gatekeeper. You had to have an FCC license. You had to sign off on all this stuff. And I was like, this is not a switcher. I didn't sign up for this job. But you know what? It taught me so much about engineering and the core of being a broadcaster. It also taught me about timing. I still can, in the middle of the day, know I'm about 5 minutes off when someone tells me what time it is.
Yeah.
It's like you just have an internal clock. And would have sign off at the time, back there. You weren't 24/7. You had sign off. So it was a interesting job, but I had a personal goal that I couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay in that role. So after about almost 8 months, I got promoted to special project engineer. Mm-hmm. So you're working with the production team. And then I eventually became the chief videographer for that station.
Because your heart was more in production and videography.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And were you, when you were in high school doing all that, were there certain projects that you worked on that kind of said, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about storytelling, and trying new things. I would find a way to get a camera up in a tree, and I would also use stop action stuff. Made the longest cable release that you could ever see to use with a 8mm camera. I made a lowboy where, I would get a plate, put a head for I could put my camera on it, put it on a shopping cart, put it on a dolly, just to get a tracking shot differently. We really experimented with stuff that today people look at and say, this is so much easier. I covered with WUFT the first space shuttle. And we were on a tower, a fire tower that was a mile away from the site. And we had to go there twice because it was scrubbed because of a technical issue. So we were all set up. And when I climbed, this tower was 65 feet up in the air. I'm carrying a 1-inch recorder, a tripod, a camera to set everything up for this whole process.
So that's about 50 pounds of equipment, isn't it?
Oh, that's on a good day.
Yeah.
That 1-inch tape recorder was about 45 pounds by itself.
It's a behemoth.
And then the power supply, and you had to bring extra batteries, and batteries would only last 20 minutes back then. And you think about the technology. We had to bicycle our tape from that tower. We had a cab pick it up when we were done. The cab brought it to a Greyhound bus station. The Greyhound bus station drove it to Tallahassee's bus station. A cab picked it up at the Tallahassee bus station. They brought it to WFSU, who had the only uplink in the PBS system, and they sent that up to get it on the news hour. That's how we had to deliver a signal back in 1981.
You couldn't just email the package?
Couldn't email the package. You couldn't take your phone and just say, go live.
Didn't have live view.
Didn't have live. You and I have been in broadcasting for some time. Just think of the technology changes that we've seen.
It's incredible.
The cost, the equipment, how readily available things are. And, when you think about the power in a phone right now, you can shoot, you can edit, you can deliver.
You can go live.
Yeah.
And many, it's funny you bring that up because I think one of the things that the pandemic did is it made less than television quality video acceptable on television because so many news stations were doing Zoom interviews that everyone got used to. Oh, they're just doing it over the internet, so that's okay. Where before an engineer would go, we're not putting that on my air.
They would say that. And the other thing too, who would ever think about going vertical?
Yeah.
Now, you when I take a photograph and I know I might use it on TV or I might use it in a social media platform, I take 2 photographs, a landscape and then a horizontal. You've got to think differently.
So obviously you got bit by the media bug, but more specifically production and video. And you're in Gainesville. You're moving out of engineering. You're moving more towards production. Where's all that take you?
Well, from Gainesville, it took me out of public media to Westfield State University to run their video studio and to produce programming for their development team and their recruitment team. And I was there for about 14 and a half years. That's where I met my wife, Beth, and that's where we raised our family, and that's where we thought we were going to stay for a while. And then you get one of those unanticipated phone calls from a former employer or boss. Said, "Hey, Bob, I need you to come help me out. And we have a job at WJCT in Jacksonville." And I was like, there's no way. I'm not doing that. And he talked me into coming down for a visit. I walked into the television studio and into the station, and I called Beth and I said, "I'm getting a call, and I really feel this is something we need to do." So I was back in the PBS family back in 1998 at WJCT in Jacksonville, and I was their engineering manager. And then I eventually, when I left there, I was the vice president of technology and operation.
So you were back in Massachusetts, what did you say, 14
and a half, yeah.
14 and a half years. So you went home.
I went home.
And you left again.
I left again. And some people say I didn't go home because Danvers is in the eastern part and Westfield is in the very western part. And there's a line called Worcester, Mass. in the middle. So they say, Bobby's not home. He's out in Westfield. But and then from WJCT in Jacksonville, I felt the urge that I needed to get, more responsibility.
Yeah.
So I went to WILL in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois.
Oh, wow. That's a change.
That is a change. And we had a wonderful time there. And I was a chief operating officer for that station. And then we moved back to Florida to WSRE in Pensacola, Florida, where I became the general manager. We were there for almost 4 years. And I got a calling and from some people to look at Chattanooga. Yeah. And I came to Chattanooga. Beth and I used to drive through Chattanooga from Illinois to Florida. Mm-hmm. And you drive through and it would be, that's a nice place, but never did I think we would be here. And actually a funny thing too is I was scoutmaster in Florida and we would take our troop up to Skymont, which is the Cherokee district camp. And so little did I know that the camp that I had been at a couple of times and many stops would someday be our home.
I'm going to back up a little bit in your PBS career because you obviously got bit by the media bug. You love production. You're going through all aspects. Did you anticipate your whole career being on the public television side? Or once you got in, did you say, I like the community aspect of this?
I really do like the community access and aspect of it. Most importantly, I like the idea that it's all built around service to others. Mm-hmm. And, when you think about PBS, the S stands for service, and it's the highlight of what we do, making sure that we're serving our community in the strongest way we can. And I like it. And right from the start, even at WUFT, when I was 23, 24, they asked me if I would go on air and do pledge drives. Mm-hmm. So I like, telling our story. I like being an advocate of what we do and how we do it. So, and I've done that at every station, and I also help WTC out with their pledge breaks. It's public media it's all about service and building community.
Yeah.
Did I think it was going to be what I wanted? I really thought I was going to work in the commercial side. Mm-hmm. I really thought that I was going to do something in broadcast on that side, and I'd be eventually back to Boston and work at a station there. But as you start to work in, public media, you have a life calling, life purpose, and you feel it. And you feel like you can make a difference, not only in the community, but to the employees that work with you, motivating them to do better, making sure that they have the right equipment and the right tools to tell the stories that they need to do or the way they need to work, making sure that there's professional development for them to, really enjoy what they do and make it fun. Yeah. So,
how long were you in Illinois?
Almost 5 years.
And then you went to Pensacola.
Yeah.
And I bring up Pensacola because I've told you this is one of my favorite towns. I've spent a lot of time there. And you were in Pensacola 4 years, did you say?
Yeah.
And so I got to see your product down there. I was on the beach a lot. I didn't watch it all the time, Bob.
That's okay. I was on the beach a lot too.
Yeah, which is a great place. When you go into a new market, whether it's Chattanooga, whether it's Pensacola, whether it's Urbana, and you're at the public television station, I would imagine each has a different need, obviously. But in general, what's your approach when you go into a new market?
To listen to the employees that work there. Learn a little bit about the history, meet some of the pivotal people that are connectors in the community, ask how you can help them, not ask how they can help you. That's going to come. Yeah. Take the idea of how can I make this better? It's like when the pandemic hit, the first person I called was Brian Johnson. And I said, hey, we can help. He says, how can you help? And I told him what we could do. And he says, where are you? I said, I'm in your parking lot. He said, come on in. So, it's really, it's kind of being a first responder to the community in some ways.
Great way to put it.
You really have to tell the story and build community and work together. So getting to know the community is important.
And I just want to clarify for anyone listening who doesn't remember Brian Johnson. He was the superintendent of Hamilton County Schools. So obviously the education component of that, very important. How did you, WTCI, what did you guys do with the Hamilton County Schools to help the students?
Well, the first thing we did was we created a bunch of telephone nights where we had our phone banks in place. We had educators there. The Hamilton County School had key people come in and make a presentation about what's happening in the school system and how you can stay involved. And people would call in and ask questions to the Hamilton County school system that were manning the phone banks at that time. We also applied for a state grant, which we were awarded, and we started a secondary channel called WTCI Educate, which is still on the air right now. We're looking at how to repurpose that station that channel just a little bit, because the initial focus on that was creating content that wasn't being done in the classrooms at that time. Getting stuff from the Department of Education from Tennessee, from Hamilton County Schools and ourselves, and other stations around the country that we would put in there to fill our schedule. So if someone wanted to learn about math, we had a math program on at some time. So we lit that up and had a new channel on our station. And
and that's one of the big changes in broadcasting over the last 20 years is the fact that now that it's digital, you can carve out parts of your spectrum and create new channels. How many channels do you have running?
We have four.
Four? Yeah. And what's the difference in them? You have the primary WTCI PBS.
Yeah. We have one called Create, and that's a service out of WGBH Boston. It's on 24/7. They have cooking shows, travel shows, that type of knitting, painting. It's like creative type programming that has been in the public media realm that is on that station. We have PBS Kids, which is a 24 kids safe harbor program. That's on, you'll walk into a hospital and 2:00 in the morning, you'll walk into a room and someone's watching PBS Kids. It's a safe harbor for that type of thing. So that's another one of our channels. And then we have our Educate channel. And from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, we have education content that is for the classroom and family support. And then from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and on the weekend, we have the World Channel, which is out of WGBH. And those are all documentaries, world-type activities, some news programs, that type of thing.
And all of these are available for free.
Yes, sir.
And I bring that up because I think there's so many younger folks today that don't realize that all you really need to do is plug a television in and raise an antenna, and you're going to get all these signals for free.
That's correct.
I know my kids always had a problem with that. It's like, oh, what do you mean it's free?
Yep. No, it's free. And if you live by the stick as a broadcaster right now, you're going to die by the stick. Yeah. You have to be thinking about all
And you're talking
platforms.
about the tower.
The tower, yeah. I said it for you. The stick is the antenna that gets out there. And if you think like you're just a broadcaster, you're not going to survive. You have to think about your community resource. You have to think about other platforms, working with partners, getting that type of thing. And that's where we are as a public media station.
Yeah. I want to talk a bit about you getting to Chattanooga and your impressions of Chattanooga. You, like a lot of people who have moved here, say, I drove through Chattanooga a lot. And we seem to be that because, we were the main highway to Disney World for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
What was your impression coming in, and what was the reality you found, and were they different?
Well, my impression was the traffic slowed down. You saw the bend, and you go like, why would I want to stop here? Okay, that's the first one.
That's us.
We did find some hotels that were right off the highway that were comfortable and easy access, and we didn't really explore the city. When we came here back in 2019 for a job interview for WTCI, we stayed at the Reed House, and now we're feeling a completely different Chattanooga.
Yeah.
We ate at some of the restaurants, and we went to the old Hodge story on Martin Luther King, and I was like, boy, this is like a pretty cool city.
Well, you're a craft beer guy,
I'm
too,
a craft
because you
beer
got
guy.
your ale to rails, which I want to talk about after you finish this.
Yeah. So we were just sitting there and we say, hey, if this works out, this could be a good gig. And we explored the city. You get the mountains, you get the water, you got a lot of outside stuff, you got great people, good restaurants, abundance of breweries, venues for music. And the other thing that's really cool about it is it's like easy to get to. If you want to get down to Atlanta, you can just be there in an hour and 45 minutes. You want to get up to Nashville, you want to go to Asheville, all these things. It's really pretty easily here. And for our kids, we have kids in Chicago, Pensacola, and Fort Myers. This is like a central point.
Oh, yeah.
So and the community is welcoming, pretty open. We found a really good church that we are going to. So it is home, and we feel good about our neighborhood. We feel good about Chattanooga, and it's a great. And I would recommend it for anybody.
It's interesting you bring up the community because I think that we've got great attributes in terms of the mountains and the lakes and everything else. But I think the thing that really separates us, and you brought it up, is the community. I moved here 25 years ago now. And what I found was if you're willing to come in and roll up your sleeves, everyone's willing to have you. Not a lot of communities like that. They're some are cliquish, and we've got our cliques. Every community does. I'm not saying that, but if you're in particularly the business community and out working in the public, that if you just are stepping up, as you said, doing things for people. A good example of that, when I moved here 25 years ago, I left Memphis, and my dad had a business in Memphis, and he said to me, you need to, your first 2 years, say yes to everything. Just someone needs some help, you help them. And it does. It not only, you not only help them and not have an obligation, but they remember you fondly, but they remember you. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get out to meet people. Mm-hmm. So what was your approach coming in addition to reaching out to Brian Johnson with the pandemic? What were some of the things that you felt like the station had to do that would get it back front and center in the public's eye?
Well, need to get our brand out there. We tell stories, and we need to tell our story more.
Yeah.
And, who we are, what we're doing, be visible, invite people into our shop so they can see what we do at the station and how we communicate with people, that type of thing. So it's really, in addition to getting out there, making sure our brand is there. Get a vehicle with a brand on it, let it drive around, get T-shirts, get baseball caps, get all, those type of things. And I have this thing that I do, two things, and they're both, one's about a pen and one's about a pin. So the pen is WTCI branded pens, okay? They're not expensive. They have your logo on it. Mm-hmm. When I go to a restaurant, in my pocket is a WTCI pen. When I sign that check, I leave the pen there because I know that server never has enough pens. And my wife tells me that. This is from Beth. She said, servers never have enough pens. So I leave that pen there, and they'll pass it to someone else. If someone steals it, they steal it. if she continues or he continues to use it, they'll continue to use it. We've gone back to 2 restaurants, and I got a WTCI pin.
Really?
It was like real joy. So, I mean, that's one of the things, getting your brand out there so people see it. And the other one is I wear a lapel pin, WTCI lapel pin. I always make sure I have an extra one in my pocket. So if I meet a donor or a supporter and they tell me how much they like the station, I'm going to tell you, my little trick is I take it off my lapel, I give it to them, and they put it on their jacket right away, and they say, thank you. And I said, you're welcome. Then I turn around and I reload. I put the other one back. It's really about getting your brand out there, letting people know who you are, and building partnerships and having respect of partners, and they'll have respect for you, that type of thing.
Yeah, because whenever you come into a new market, it's a challenge. I mean, not only a professional challenge or a personal challenge in getting that branding out and finding what people want and trying to deliver on that. I was on the commercial side. You were on the public side. Yeah. Both sides, tremendous challenges today.
Yes. Can
you talk about some of the challenges facing public broadcasting today and, frankly, some of the misnomers out there?
Sure. Funding has always been central to how we operate, and we work with our area lawmakers, and we get support both federally and statewide for our station. Mm-hmm. And it is essential that we keep that funding. And we really want to let them know how local we are, what we do in the local area, what we do with education. We have programs that we bring into community centers where our education team educate families and caregivers and educators about the properties that we have and the resources that PBS Learning Media and PBS Kids have.
So you'll send a team out into the community to talk about your programming and how it will help them?
Not only our programming, but what's online.
Okay.
Like teaching tools, how to read, some math programs, some science programs, all STEM programs. We have a remarkable education team that will go out in the field and do that. Not only that, we've hosted teacher training at the station. We look for supporters and some underwriters or sponsors to help us continue that. For the last 2 years, we've had a RTL grant, which is Ready to Learn, which is supported by Corporation for Public Broadcasting, that has allowed us to do this. We're into our second and last year of that funding. So we need to look for some local support so we can continue to do that.
Related to that, what are some of the live production things you do that really focus on the community, whether it's a specific program or special events that someone could expect to see on WTCI?
Sure. We do not have live programming, news like that, but what we do is record specific programs. The A-List with Allison Leibovitz is into their 16th season.
Is it 16 years already?
16 years.
My goodness.
Yeah, and she is a wonderful interviewer. And I've seen.
And Allison's integrated into everything.
She is, and people really come to respect that show. And we look at who's coming to town, how we can get to that person, and then some local A-listers. So we're into the 16th season of that. Hey, if anybody wants to support that program, they can give me a call.
Hey, I'm not commercial free, so go right ahead. This isn't Rotary.
No, that's true. So that's a great program. We have another flagship program called Greater Chattanooga, and it was a half-hour program in years past where they had 2 or 3 segments of local stories of interest. And I made point to how we have to change the way we get content out. So now we're made those shorter, and they're anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. They live on our YouTube channel. They live on our platform, and you can watch them in our Passport app. And then when we get enough programs that are alike, they make a half-hour special of that. So that program, it's a really good storytelling highlight of so many different areas here. Another new initiative that we've done this year, Mike, is we've worked with independent producers here in Chattanooga. They have a story to tell, and they don't have a platform to get it out. So we started working with the Lookout Wild Film Festival, and a really good film festival for the community. Last year, Sean and I went, Sean Townley, who's an employee at WTCI, and myself went to the festival, and we said, we need to do more.
Yeah.
So we created an hour-long program highlighting the top 4 films from last year. And we had it on our air in December and in January. In between the top films, we had interviews with the producers, the directors, and that type of thing to really show the community of the value of independent producers. So this year we've attended the other Lookout Film Festival, and we recorded already the folks, and we're going to do that same type of highlight show. And our team is working more with independent producers to find avenues for them to get their content out too.
I think the general public would be surprised the number of independent producers in the Chattanooga area and the number of people creating media content.
Absolutely. We're sunsetting a program that we've had on our air that for the last 4 years, Chattanooga Stronger Together. Mm-hmm. It is a program that highlights 2 area nonprofits that don't have the wherewithal to really promote what they do. And it's on once a month. We're into our 4th season. We've told 96 stories of nonprofits on our air. And then our team will show them how to take that content that we had on our air to cut it up, to make smaller segments, to put it on their website, or to use the full, 7-minute segment that it's longer than that, 12-minute segment, and put it on the air, on their website.
And is it also housed on your site?
It's also housed on our site, yes, and it's a great program. Barbara Martyr is our host. She has worked to get funding for that. It's a fully funded program that we've had on the air.
Do you cut any of those up for social media, and how much social media do you guys do?
Well, we have a limited staff. We're doing more and more social media. Some of our producers have taken on a role to highlight and then put a schedule together, like this is what we're going to do on this day. Mm-hmm. More and more, I'd love to be able to have a position that's focused on social media, but we do it in-house right now. Mm-hmm. We're also doing more digital strategies, working with the independent contractor to help us look at that.
Well, and I think it's a challenge for all broadcasters in terms of staffing and what they can do, but you guys have been doing it your whole life. You know what I mean?
We have.
The commercial stations, it's really been the last 10 years that the focus has been on efficiency more than anything else. So that gives you, in my eyes, a little bit of an advantage because you do more with less.
Very good eyes.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up is your focus on local.
Yes, sir.
Local television stations, and I'm biased. Yeah, local television stations, local news is so important to the community that we're losing a bunch of it. If you look at just newspapers, we're fortunate in Chattanooga that we do not have a Gannett-owned newspaper. Ours is owned by WECO, which is Walter Hussman. And we have a bit of a more independent voice. But if you go read the Tennessean, you go read the Commercial Appeal, you go read the News Sentinel in Knoxville, it's the same thing. And unfortunately, that's happened to commercial television stations too, with the Grays of the world, Sinclairs of the world, the Nexstars of the world, buying up all these TV stations and then forcing content down. You're in a unique position that no one's forcing content on you.
No, we have a programming team that we work with to look at acquisitions that we may want to add to the strength of the PBS schedule that we have. And then we look at our local team and say, what can we do for local production and how can we work that way? So we do our own locally owned, operated, managed, and operated is the way to go. And I think the difference with our funding is to continue to tell the local story to see what kind of impact that we continue to make with people in the community.
I want to get to 2 more things before we run out of time.
Okay.
And I had brought up your love of craft beer. Ales to rails or ales to trails?
The Ale Trail.
Ale Trail. God, at some point I'll read and remember. The Ale Trail. Tell us about the Ale Trail.
Well, the thing about it is you want to look at different opportunities for fundraising for your station. And we came up with this idea, and we couldn't use Passport because we have PBS Passport. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to build it around Chattanooga Choo Choo. I mean, it's iconic,
yeah.
you know. So we looked at the trails, and I give a lot of credit to Beth, my wife. She's also a craft beerer, and she pushed this idea, and my two sons, who also are craft people. And I said, this would be a good fundraiser. And so in the first year, we sold 300 Ale Trail books. And the books are $30 a piece. And they tell you a story about each one of the brewers that are here in Chattanooga. And we have a little thing on the side that says, you know, they have open mic nights, they have food, they have pet friendly, they are under 21 or over 21, all those theories. And then we have these rounds and little bottle caps on there. We give each one of the brewers a stamp. And round one, you get it stamped. You go to 10 out of the 15 that are on that page, you get a WTCI Ale Trail glass this year. When you go to 10, you move into round two. And round two, there's 15 of them. Each one of those, when they stamp it, you buy 2 beers, you get 50% off. So it's like buy one, get one free. And when you get 10, you get a WTCI Ale Trail growler. The growler is empty, but if you're a craft beer person, you know how to get those filled. And then what we learned from last year is that many of the ale trailers said, we want a little bit more. We want to explore a little bit more. So this year, Beth recruited 14 brewers that are an hour to an hour and a half drive from Chattanooga. So they have a certain page that with each one of those, you buy 2 beers, you get 50% off right away. You don't have to go through round one. You don't have to go through round two. You want to go for a Saturday drive and go up to, like making your way to Knoxville and stop at Monkey Town.
I was going to bring up Monkey Town.
They're in there. So you buy 1 beer, you get 1 free, basically. And then if you go to 4 of those sidetracks, you get a WTCI taster glass, each 4 that you get. So it's getting our brand out. And what we've done is we've opened up public broadcasting to a new group of people.
Well, I was going to say, you've got something that, frankly, is less stodgy. You know,
it is.
It's more average Joe than what people envision the PBS viewer to be.
Well, they always look at wine. We're going to do a wine event.
Yeah.
So it was like, let's try craft beer. And another thing that we did in addition to the rounds, we do a pop-up event where we'll work with one of the breweries that are in there and say, what night is slow? Tuesday night. Okay. We're going to let our ale trailers know that we're going to have an event at this brewery tonight. And they'll give us $1 off a pint or $1 off a pizza. And we let everybody know. And then we'll have anywhere from 25 to 60 people that are ale trailers in that restaurant just talking about craft beer, PBS, and supporting the local breweries.
And what year is this that you've done it?
This is year 2.
Year 2. So it's been successful for you.
It has. We sold 300 books in round 1. We made $9,000.
That's great. And how can someone get a book?
They can get a book by going to WTCI.org/aletrail. They can get it that way. If you ever see me, I usually have them with me.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to get one from you.
Okay, I'm going to count on it.
Yeah.
We also have put out at a lot of the breweries coasters that have the WTCI Ale Trail logo on it.
Idea.
And on the logo is a QR code, so they can order it at that point right there.
That's pretty darn smart.
Thank you.
You got to give credit to your wife for that.
I do give credit. I do.
Well, before I get to the last question, Bob, I do want to remind our listeners who makes all this possible. And it's a huge thank you to the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring My Morning Cup. Follow TVA on social media to learn more about its multifaceted mission of service, and visit TVA.com/do-good-here to explore exciting TVA career opportunities. All right, last question.
Yeah.
What would you tell that 25-year-old self is important for a happy life?
Boy, I knew you asked this question, and I'd say do it. Do it.
Just
have fun.
Nike,
just do it and have fun. You know, I mean, don't be afraid. I feel very lucky that I walked into a television studio in high school, and I have never been without a television studio since. You know, how many people can actually say that?
Yeah, very few.
So, I feel like I'm living the dream when it comes down to that.
Well, and to your point of do it, you left Massachusetts to go to Gainesville, Florida. I mean, you just did it. I mean, your whole family, your whole life was there. And I mean, that had to be pretty intimidating.
I think one time my daughter asked me, Dad, what's your favorite job? And I said, part-time or full-time? She said, anyone. So I told her about the harbor master job. And she said, no, full-time. And I said, the one I have now. And she said, Dad, I'm so happy for you.
That's great.
And I said, and that was 2 jobs ago, Mike. I said, what the important part is having the courage to make the change that you need to do to move forward. And so the idea is the job I have right now is my favorite job.
And I like your point, because so many times people don't make the change because of comfort, because of fear of the unknown. And I've been guilty of that. Yeah, I think we've all been at points in our career where you go back and go, maybe I should have gone down that path instead of the other. Not looking back in regret, but you just don't know where that path will take you.
Yep.
Well, that's great advice, Bob.
Well, thank you for inviting me onto the show. I like my new morning cup mug. And,
well, I tell you what, between the cup and the ale trail, we both got great promotional items.
There you go. Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here, getting to know you better, and really respect and enjoy everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much, Mike.
Good to see you. Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.